All right, Phil here from the future. Just a quick note. I went through what I had recorded and I realized that this tutorial is very long. It can be slightly confusing. It's great if you know Adobe Premiere Pro, and it will hopefully be beneficial and helpful if you don't use Adobe Premiere Pro. But I just wanted to warn you that you might need to drink some coffee, make sure you're wide awake for the rest of this tutorial because it can get kind of intense following along. So let's get straight to it. So I'm in Premiere Pro, and if you do have Adobe Lightroom, if you have a Creative Cloud actual membership, then you should be able to download Adobe Premiere Pro for free. It comes with the membership. If you just have the photo plan, then you don't have it. So you could download a free trial just to test it out. So there's a couple ways to actually create a time lapse. I'm going to show you the really quick way. One is to go up to the File Import menu. So just go to File, Import, or press Command I. And then all you really have to do is go to the folder that has your photos in it. Go to the first photo. If you're on a Mac, click Options. If you're on a PC, there should be an Options button, or it might just appear down at the bottom of this import window. There's this little checkbox that says Image Sequence. What this is going to do is it's going to actually import all of the photos that are in sequence in this folder and put it together as a video automatically. So if I do this and say import, it's going to process it. Each photo is going to become one frame, and then it's going to actually become a video. So here we have this sequence, image sequence, and if I put this in a new sequence itself, here we have this actual time lapse. And this time lapse is about 25 seconds long, and that makes sense because we shot for, if I speed through this, we shot for about 12 minutes, 12 to 15 minutes. We started our timer a little bit late, but that makes sense based off of Will's math before, where we said for a 10-second video, it would take 5 minutes. For 20-second video, it would take 10 minutes about, and then for, I guess, 25 seconds, it would be about 12 and a half minutes or so. Or it should be exactly 12 and a half minutes exactly. Notice though that the aspect ratio for this time lapse matches the aspect ratio for the photos themselves. So the aspect of these edited photos is 1920 by 1280. And that's kind of an awkward, more squarish aspect ratio compared to the normal screen size, which is what I keep talking about in terms of 1920 by 1080. That's the typical size or aspect ratio for television screens, computer screens, and mobile phone screens as well. And so that's why I use that aspect ratio. If you're happy with this aspect ratio, then by all means, you're basically done, and all you'd have to do is export this sequence and create a video with it. I'm going to be showing how to do that later on in this video. Now, I know this is a very long tutorial, and this is not a full video editing class, and so I am kind of breezing by a lot of things, and so you might be very confused. If you want to learn a full how to edit videos, we have a complete Adobe Premiere Pro class if you're interested. But I am just trying to get you going and show you all the things you would have to do in Premiere Pro. And hopefully this is more for people who are a little bit more familiar with Premiere Pro. If you are using another photo editor, you might not have, or video editor, you might not have that image sequence option. So basically what you would have to do is put together a sequence of video with every photo as a frame. And I'll show you how to do that relatively quickly here in Premiere Pro. So first you would want to import all of the photos. So I'm going to create a new folder and call this Photos 2. And then I'm going to take all of these photos from this folder. I'm going to select all of them, Command A, and just drag and drop them into this folder. Now this folder is in my project bin. This is where we organize our video edits and all of our media assets that we're using for our videos in Premiere Pro. See how they're importing? Once they're imported, we have all the photos here in this folder. Now, the next thing I want to do is create a new sequence for the video that I'm creating. So to do that, you can click this new item button and then choose sequence. And then for the sake of ease, go to the AVCHD folder, then under 1080p, click this AVC HD 1080p 30 sequence. And what this is saying is that this is a 29.97 frames per second sequence, basically a 30 frames per second sequence. 29.97 is just the technical frame rate that video players and video playback does good with. So if I click OK, if I go and I zoom in on this timeline down here, if I zoom in all the way to 1 second, so on this timeline we have the numbers, so 0, this is 15 frames, and then this is 1 second. So if I go through, you can actually count the frames up here. So it goes all the way up to 29, and then 30 is 1 second. And so what we want to do is put each photo as 1 frame. Now the hard way to do this and the long way to do this would be to take each photo, bring it into your timeline. But in most video editing applications, your photo is not already going to be set up to only be 1 frame in terms of length. It'll be about 5 seconds or something. Now in Premiere Pro, there are some preferences that allow you to automatically tell Premiere Pro, hey, I want photos, when I import them, I want them to be 1 frame. But in a lot of other video editors, you might not have that option. So you would literally have to go through and trim each photo. Now I'm zooming in here on the timeline down to 1 frame. So that's 1 frame. Then we'd go to the next photo. There's lots of different ways to trim. I can use my razor blade tool and do this. But again, that's going to take a very, very long time, and there's an easier way to do it. So in Premiere Pro, if I select all of the photos that are in this folder that I just imported to, if I right-click those selected photos and choose Speed Duration, here we have the duration of each photo file when we put it on a timeline. It's set to 5 seconds. So if I set this to 1 frame like so and click OK, it's changed the length of each photo. Now I can take one photo and I could do it one at a time and put it on the timeline, and you can see that it brings it down as 1 frame each. Or the much quicker way to do it is to select all of them and place them on the timeline. Now if I zoom out of my timeline, you can see that I'm zooming out to about 25 seconds here, and I can play through it, and we now have our time lapse playing. 1 frame per photo, 1 photo per frame. Awesome. So there's a couple things that we have to keep in mind. Now, since the height of this photo was not matching the aspect ratio of this frame, the 1920 by 1080 frame that we created with this sequence, what we can do is actually move the photo up or down a little bit. So if I select the photo up here in the Effects Controls window, if you don't see that, go to Windows, Effects Controls, you have the position. And notice if I click and drag this second number in the position function over there, we can actually move it up or down a little bit, and we have that sort of wiggle room to move it up or down. So if it doesn't look good to you, I mean, this looks pretty good to me already, but if it doesn't look good to you, you can move it up or down to fit this frame. Now, the one thing that is kind of off is that we have the phone right here with the timer. I wish that that phone was a little bit up higher, because in this 1920 by 1080 frame, it gets a little cut off. Now we can kind of try to move it up, but if we move the photo up too much, then I feel like the art and the main subject of this video or time lapse is a little bit too far up. So I'm gonna move it back down, just something like that. Now I need to copy and paste this motion to all of the other frames, because otherwise the video is gonna play, and then for this 1 frame, see how it moves up just a little bit and then it moves back down. So to copy and paste that motion or that position to all the other photos, just with that photo that you edited selected, click the motion title in the Effects Controls window up here, and then copy it, Command-C, Control-C if you're on a PC, and then select all your photos on your timeline by clicking in your timeline, pressing Command-A. That selects all of them, and then Command-V, paste that setting onto all of those other photos. So now all of the photos have that position. Cool. So now what you really want to do too is go through and go to the very beginning and make sure that there aren't any extra photos in the beginning. So there were a couple photos that Will was taking just framing up the shot. So you might want to go in and delete the first few, and that would be fine. So we delete the first few. And at the end as well. At the end, sometimes you like bump the camera just a little bit or something. So you might want to just cut out any of those last frames after there was a little camera bump there. So now this whole thing is about 25 seconds, and we can go through and we could export this. But what if 24 seconds is a little bit too long and we want to speed it up? We can actually do that. To do that in Premiere Pro, all we have to do is select all of these files, all the photos, and I did that again by pressing Command A, right click, and choose Nest. Click OK. Now, basically what that did was it put all of those photos and it made it into sort of like a video clip. It's called a nested sequence, but it's basically like a clip that has all those photos in it. And now this clip that has replaced all of those photos can be edited. So we can speed it up by right-clicking this nested sequence, choosing speed and duration, and now we can multiply the speed by 2 by increasing it to 200%. We could multiply it by 3 and increase by 300%. So now this is an 8-second duration, or we can type in a specific duration. Say it was 10 seconds. We can put 10 seconds exactly. That's 248%, and we can click OK. So now this is a 10-second time lapse. We can even add motion to it. So what we can do is with the scale, we can do like a little zoom in by setting a keyframe for the scale. So go at the very beginning at 0 seconds and click the time watch for scale, which is the toggle animation button right here. Then go to the very end. You might have to go like 1 frame before the very end and zoom in to something like 105 or something. And now throughout this entire time lapse, it's subtly doing a zoom in, which is pretty cool. And you see that in a lot of time-lapse photography videos. You can also add a little bit of a rotation. So at the very beginning, again, I'm going to set this toggle animation button for 0. And then I'm going to go to the end, and I'm going to rotate to negative, let's see, -2 maybe. And when I do that, I notice that the edge gets a little cut off in the corner, so I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit more so that it doesn't cut off anymore. So now we zoom in to 107% and we rotate to -2. Now notice though that because I've actually zoomed in to 107, we actually lose a little bit of quality. So this is a case where you might want to actually export your videos at higher quality than 1920 with in Lightroom so that you have that room to zoom in when you are doing sort of animations like this. But here we have our sequence with our animated zoom in and rotate. Now, how do we export? I'll get to that really quick. Go up to sequence. Actually, take that back. Go to File, Export, Media, Command M. They always move these buttons around in Premiere Pro. And then you have some presets. So for something that you're just going to post online, make sure the format is H.264. And then the preset, you can either choose just this high bitrate match source, or you might want to use something like this YouTube 1080p HD. Click the output name to rename it, and then also to choose where you want to save it. Here you can see all of the settings. But really all you have to do is just click export, and it's going to export it, and it's going to be on our desktop. So we'll check that out. Takes 5 seconds, pretty short because it's a pretty short clip. And once it's exported, we can see it and we can play it. And now this video we can post it online, share it on social media, do whatever we want with it. Wow, so that was a very long, kind of complicated tutorial. I know that for a lot of you, it might not be the most helpful tutorial if you're not using Premiere Pro, if you're not using Lightroom. But hopefully you can take these skills and transfer them to your own video editor. If you want to learn how to do this in a specific video editing application, I may be able to help you, so you can post questions in the course. But I would much rather, or it would probably be better and faster if you just search on YouTube for how to put together a time lapse with Sony Vegas or Final Cut Pro or whatever video editor you're using. All right, thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I know it was a long one. I hope you enjoyed this section of the course, and we'll see you in another one.